One of the things we do here at the New York Produce Show and Conference while they're gathering their place is we attempt to bring together here in the city of New York thought and practice leaders from around the country and around the world who are able to share great ideas, who are able to share great practices and help us to elevate this industry. So we've put together an incredible panel, really the best of the region combined with incredible ideas from around the world and country. So what I'd like to do to get us started, we don't have that much time. Mark, starting with you, if everyone could just introduce themselves, explain your journey that brought you here today, and who you are and where you are today, we'd really appreciate that. Mark?
Okay, thanks, Jim. Yeah, Mark Carrol. I'm currently with the Fresh Market here in the East Coast. The journey started mainly in Texas for 30 years, Randall's, Tom Thumb, Whole Foods, and then on the West Coast for 10 years with Gelson's Markets, and then I got over to the East Coast as fast as I could, mainly because my family's here, so glad to be in the East Coast.
Okay, Robin?
I'm Robin Fisher. I'm with P.F. Chang's. I've been there about 5 years, and just a great industry, and I'm in the supply chain piece of our business.
Mark?
Marc Goldman with Morton Williams Supermarkets. I've been in the industry for about 40 years. Started out with Wallbounds when I was a kid, and still going.
Amy?
Amy Lance, I work for HelloFresh UK. I head up the UK technical team. HelloFresh are a global meal kit delivery service. I started off in the industry about 10 years ago now, working for Tesco in the UK, and then following that, Waitrose.
Thank you. Ed?
I'm Ed McLaughlin, Professor of Marketing and the Director of the Food Industry Management Program at Cornell University. And I've been a student of the produce industry for my whole career.
Okay. Tony?
My name is Tony Mirack, Produce Director for McCaffrey Markets for 17 years. I've been in the business for 30 years, retail. I've done wholesale, some buying, and I was a merchandiser for Fleming Foods at the time. The reason that I'm here is I love this business. It's a great business. I've been doing it for 30 years, and I'm blessed that every day I wake up, I get to do it. So that's why I'm here.
Okay. Sharon?
I'm Sharon Olson. I'm with Olson Communications, and we will celebrate our 30th year in the food service business next year. I've been in the business a long time, and we have a couple of specialty practices called Culinary Visions Panel and Y-Pulse. We do a lot of consumer research, trend forecasting, and specifically focused on food service and deli.
Josh?
Yes, I've actually been in produce for 18 years. I actually work at Crowdcell Foods. I started my career about 18 years ago with Pathmark Supermarkets as a produce clerk. I've worked with Whole Foods and Weiss Markets.
Thank you. John?
Yes, Jon Storm from C&S Wholesale Grocers. I've been in the business for about 11 years. Started in buying commodities, list cost items, and now I manage our list cost categories.
Okay, Tony?
Sure, Tony Stallone. I'm with Peapod, and my family's been in the produce business for over 100 years. So I've been in the produce business all my life. I used to pack tomatoes on Sunday after church for the next day, Monday morning, and I knew I was strange in the produce business when I used to go to dinner parties, and I used to tell people that the lettuce talked to me. And everybody would look at me and start laughing, and I was like, wow, that's really weird, isn't it?
Very good. Rafi?
Yes, Rafi Tahirian. I oversee Yale Hospitality, Yale University. I've been in the industry for many years, but for the last 22 years, I've been heading campus dining in Stanford University on the West Coast and now at Yale. Produce talks to me too, by the way.
Terrific. John?
John Vassapoli from D'Agostino Supermarkets. I started very young, and I've been in the business 46 years. 36 years as the produce director, and I love what I'm doing. It changes every year, and it's exciting business to be in.
Right, and Lauren, who has graced us, maybe we should have a special hand, flew all the way from China to help us today. He gave Yesterday, we did our global trade symposium, and Lauren just blew us away with the most incredible presentation on his company and what they're doing in China. So.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lauren Zhao from China, Shanghai. I'm the co-founder of Fruit Day, one of China's earliest and largest e-commerce for fresh produce online. Thank you.
Okay. We just gave out these innovation awards, and product is a big part of innovation, but it's not the only part of innovation. It's also about process, it's also about systems, I guess Peapod Tony, since we have two Tonys on the panel, I guess I should start with you, because there's so much attention paid to online and to the whole thing with Amazon's acquisition of Whole Foods and all this. Are we all a bunch of dinosaurs? You've been in this a long time, and you've gone from packing tomatoes to the cutting edge. What's the future going to be for online delivery and omni-channel retailing and all these things?
Well, I wish I had a crystal ball, because I would have made a lot of money. But, the thing is, I look at our industry, 5 years ago, could anybody predict where we are today? And then what would the future look like 5 years? So change is very rapidly happening. But the one constant among all that change is the customer. And, as trite as it sounds sometimes, it is really the basis of innovation, it's the basis of success, and it is the future. And the customer, so we focus on the customer. And if you really focus on the customer, and what we say is, we want to meet that customer's needs. But those needs are changing very, very rapidly. So everything, if we do it from an industry standpoint, from a retail standpoint, from an innovation standpoint, if you do it on behalf of the customer, where they are today, but more importantly, where they're going to be in the future, you're going to find yourself to be successful. And where that future is, I really don't know, but I always see things as being cyclical, and I think we're going to see an explosion in e-commerce and omni-channel, and I think things then will kind of turn a little bit too for more of that personal one-on-one touch, but that's only my opinion.
Well, Tony, you may not have a crystal ball, but Ed kind of gets paid to have a crystal ball. Ed, we seem to be, there's a strange thing in the world today. I find, if you read the articles in the papers, you'd say consumers are really focused. They want transparency, they want local, they want organic, they want to make sure the labor is treated well, they want sustainability, they want all these fantastic things. But I also say, well, the largest retailer in America, that's Walmart. The fastest growing supermarket, that's Aldi. Probably the fastest growing startup is Lidl. These are not, then probably that Martian reading all those things about what people want would assume Whole Foods is the largest supermarket chain in America. When we see this kind of disconnect between popular reporting and actual facts on the ground, where do you think this is leading this industry in the years ahead?
Well, Jim, you're right. In a sense, I do get paid to have a crystal ball, but they don't pay me very much to do it. So take this with a grain of salt. Well, that was a pretty broad question, but a very good one. I think a lot of the disruptions, Jim, to which you refer, the continued rise of the discounter, the incredible strength and economic prowess of Walmart, and now the Amazon Whole Foods deal that's really shaken the whole food industry. I think several things are clear. I think we will expect, and Tony referred to this, that more and more conventional bricks and mortar companies, or retail companies, will absolutely have to have some omni-channel digital presence in order to serve the percentage of customers. And I don't think it will be the majority by any means, but a substantial minority of customers will prefer to do their business online. I think most retailers will have to have that capability in the near future, and most of them are already developing it. I think they will have to increasingly differentiate themselves from the more standardized offerings that we'll see online. So we can expect to see more experience-driven produce departments. I think we can hope for and expect more innovative products. You referred to that earlier, Jim. And I think we'll see a lot more differentiation with using people and probably a reduction in SKU count. Historically, retailers have continued to add and add and add more products every year. I think no retailer, irrespective of how high-end they are today, can continue to afford to have endless numbers of products in the face of lower price competition.
Maybe, John, you could weigh in on this. You know, here we are, we're trying to increase consumption, we're trying to serve consumers, and we're coming out with all these innovative products, these really niche things that are seemingly going to appeal to consumers, which Tony said is what we've got to be thinking about, the consumer. But do we need to think about logistics maybe instead because we can't handle all these products?
For sure. I mean, you have a lot of products. You know, our SKU counts are growing. The SKUs that we carry in our warehouses are growing. There's a lot of different vendors that we need to pick up from. There's new regulations that are happening in the trucking business with logging drivers' hours. It's going to add potentially longer trips across the country. We're going to have to look at how we load product because we're going to lose driving time as we load with all these different suppliers. So we're going to have to look at how we do things and perhaps, you know, consolidating product on the West Coast and sending fresh trucks across the country once that product is consolidated. So we're going to have to think about how we can do things differently.
Well, does this even really matter, Sharon? You know, Ed has a great slide I've seen in his presentations, and it's a graph that shows what percentage of consumer expenditures on food are spent at retail and at food service. And it's really terrific because there aren't that many things we have 100 years of good data on, and we happen to have it in this area. And Ed presents it, and a few years ago we passed that 50% mark where most of the dollars are now being spent at food service. Now that doesn't mean the majority of the product is going to food service, because of course when you buy something at a restaurant, it includes the waiters and the atmosphere and the strolling violinist and whatever else you might be getting. But is it true that this trend is going to continue and that, in fact, the whole idea of retailing has to sort of change because we're not really going to cook things anymore? Is that the way it is?
You know, it's an interesting phenomenon because food service has become part of today's lifestyle. It's part of what everyone does, and we say they want their ethics on the go. They're eating away from home. They don't have time to cook. They're looking for healthier things. They're looking for, and they've got a lot more options. In food service, you see restaurants struggle with same-store sales and customer counts because consumers are eating out like crazy, but they're going to lots of different places, and they've got different needs at different times. But, you know, they like to eat at home, and restaurants have made it so easy to deliver. They've got different ways of giving them the satisfaction of cooking without having the skills and doing the grocery shopping with some of the things that can be delivered to their homes. So they've got so many choices, everything, and they want healthy, affordable, and delicious, and they can get it. We used to say, pick a couple. It used to be healthy, taste bad. Now it's I want healthy. And it's an interesting phenomenon. It goes all the way from school food service to senior dining. People become accustomed to a restaurant-style dining service no matter where they want it.
But Amy, isn't like your whole purpose in life to get people back to cooking in the kitchen? So maybe the food service industry needs to be worried. What is HelloFresh exactly? How do you do this?
Yeah, ultimately, we've got a passion about getting people back into the kitchen, enjoying food as a family. And a lot of that is done by providing the exact quantities of the ingredients fresh to the home so that people can create those meals in the home and enjoy it.
Well, what about when we have young people, Rafi, you know, at a university, a great university like Yale? Are they driving you to make decisions in a certain way? Do you have to have everything local or organic, or what do they want from you?
Well, I was interested, when Tony said that we need to pay attention to customers, cannot agree with him more. And who are the customers? 18 years of millennials, they came actually through university dining, and what did they learn? They learned those attributes that, Jim, you were talking about, the local, the fresh, the organic, the sustainable. All those attributes are now common nomenclature in the industry. We brought that nomenclature actually to the industry. That used to be unique to the casual dining and high-end restaurant. It became democratized in campus dining. Now, with post-millennial, things are changing. And changing, again, in not a different direction where millennials they were. They're actually more and more demanding in real and reasonable, actually, changes in the system. Ultimately, I think we're all in the same business. We want to put more produce on the plate. We've been advocating for it for many years. And I think it's about culture and about systems. People in this room, that they take care of the systems, the logistics, the distribution, the packaging, and all sorts of things. And the culture that we in campus dining, we actually have a very, very important role, in playing in the industry.
One of the things that's sort of changing in retail, when I was a little boy and we used to have, my dad was very involved in import and export. We'd have people come from foreign countries and from Chile and the Netherlands and other places, and they would ask my father, while they were here, they wanted to see what were the top 5 national supermarket chains. And there really were no national supermarket chains in America. But in recent years, Walmart kind of has covered the whole country. And there are a whole series of concepts. They may not have been fully built out yet, but they're not intrinsically tied to one region or another. And certainly the corporate ambitions are not tied. So, Trader Joe's and Aldi and Lidl and Whole Foods. Another concept that's not tied to a geography is the fresh market. How does the fresh market as a kind of national concept think about going into different marketplaces and still being relevant and important to those marketplaces?
Yeah, so the fresh market, we're spread out. We have 176 stores all the way up and down the eastern seaboard, and as far south as Miami, and then we go all the way as far even north, if you want to call it northwest, Wisconsin. So we are spread out quite a bit, and so the thing to do there is to regionalize as much as possible. So that is what we're trying to do. We're trying to find a flavor for every single region. Quite often we only have 1-2 stores in a metropolitan area. So the centralized model is one that we have to try to decentralize a little bit more to be more responsive to those customers. Coming from a regional player out in the West Coast, it was a little bit different, where you had one big cluster and everything together, and it was a little bit different logistics as well. But the same thing holds true when it comes on the retail experience. If you have the quality of produce out there all the time, then that's going to resonate with the customers, whether you just have one individual store in one area or you have a large amount in one single area. So, for example, when I was on the West Coast, we had, when we did Instacart, for using that channel, I was shocked to see that the percent of produce in the Instacart was 25%. And so after talking with a few people about that, we come to find out that, and that was with Gelson's, we come to find out over there that it had to do with the fact that we had quality. A lot of people were very apprehensive about someone else picking out their produce, but yet we had a quality reputation. And with that quality reputation, we saw a large amount of produce going into the Instacart baskets. And so that's the same thing we're trying to do with the fresh market, is try to get that quality up so that we get that percentage up as well.
Lauren, we think here sometimes we can be a little in our own box here in America and think, be consumed with our issues. But many of the issues that we've been discussing here, like omni-channel retailing and things, those actually are global issues. And Lauren's the leader in China in internet delivery of fruit to the home. But you also have made other moves recently. What are you doing to try and combine all these things, and why is that important?
Yeah, you know that in China we are being called traditional e-commerce. Although we only a 9 years old company, but in China, everything changed very, very, very fast. So in order to compete, the competitors from everywhere, so we need to, from the online to offline. That's why in the past years we invested the offline chain supermarket, and also we began to open more fresh stores more close to the residence area. And also we invested the technology to deploy the self-service vending machine in the office. The purpose of that is we want to to keep more to more close to our customers, because in the past the e-commerce we don't have chance to meet our customers face to face. But that when the customer they have all different demand from younger generation to maybe a little bit older generation, and from the office to home, they have different demand, and they have different purchase, different kind of demand for different fruit. So we need to, if we need to keep our business growing, we need to be, very careful and try to find out what our customer need.
It's interesting. It reminds me of Walmart has had an internal battle for years over whether or not they should continue with their service deli departments. And there's a lot of argument in terms of efficiency and the price points they're looking for, that they would do better to not have the service deli. But they also worry that there's no point in this whole shopping experience where consumers actually get to interact with anyone, any of these staff members. So far they've held on to the service deli with the thought that that interaction is important, a way of gathering intelligence about customers and a way of putting a human face on the operation. Tony from McCaffrey's, I'd be interested in hearing, do you think this is really the crucial thing, this idea that we have to service customers every way, or is it possible to just be good in one thing and maybe make your mark that way?
Well, what I can tell you is that for us, the interaction with our customers is the most important trait that we look for. When I first took over the Floral, I saw our Floral department staff, they would literally, a customer would grab a bouquet, she would bring it up, and our Floral department would take it apart and rewrap it. And I looked at it and I said, well, how effective is that? But it wasn't until I started listening to the conversations between the customer and the Floral manager, and I realized it's golden. It's the most important thing that we do in retail is interact with the customer. Because I know that when that customer wakes up and she needs flowers, she thinks of our flower manager. This business is simple. We say we're in the food business. Well, we're not. We sell food, but we're in the people business. You have to learn how to connect with your people, with your customers. When they wake up, and I just had this conversation, when those people wake up and they think of produce, they need to think of your staff. They need to think of your butcher. And that's the most important thing. You say about Walmart trying to decide whether they should just make it a grab and go. That would be such a mistake, because I want my people talking to my customers all the time. I don't want them on computers. I don't want them in the back room counting stuff. I want them on the floor. That's what makes the difference between us and our competition is that we preach that to our employees, that customer interaction. Take that time. It's what's golden. We are in the people business, and we have to remember that.
Jon, I wonder though, labor is so expensive, and with rises in minimum wages and things like this all across the country, is this a viable model to think we're going to be able to interact with the customers in a really personal way?
Well, you're right about the labor. It's been a big challenge for us. But as this gentleman alluded to, I mean, that's what we have. We're the local store. We're the last line of defense. When the customer comes into our store and buys something, our clerks and our cashiers, that's who they interact with, and they don't visualize where the product's coming from or how it got here. They don't care about that. They want to know that they have a good experience when they're in the store, that the associate can help them and give them what they're looking for on a consistent basis.
Josh, how could the vendor community, the producer community, better interact with retailers to use some of this interaction, this last line that Jon's talking about, to help people discover some of these new items that are now appearing that we just celebrated in the Innovation Awards, and in general to help boost consumption of fruits and vegetables?
Well, actually, what vendors should do actually is basically communicate a lot more with the retailers, having some more face time with them, sending them with a lot of the technology out there, Facebook and Twitter and all those types of communication things. I think social media is a way to basically promote some of their items, their products, and basically put that information out to vendors. One of the things that I like to do basically is also get the vendors to come into our offices, introduce the items. I represent a lot of the independents that are out there in New York City, and what we sometimes do is we'll have basically some panels that'll look at new items and say whether these items will work for their stores. And so some of the things like that, the vendors basically do for us and support us in those things.
Robin, food service has often been a point of entry for a lot of innovative new products. If you go back to think about how kiwi was introduced, it was really in restaurants where chefs started making little kiwi tarts and things like this. And then when consumers saw these and tasted these things at restaurants, they then wanted to make them at home, and that led to the entry into retail. But the produce industry is also really kind of ill-suited or not used to working with restaurants in the same way as they do with retailers. They're used to having their products and offering them. And the problem is, of course, if you don't have a particular product on your menu, no matter what my price is or the quality, you're probably not going to buy that product. What kind of interaction with the produce community could be helpful to an operator like yourself in finding better ways to use healthy produce and increase that in your menus?
We've started where we've gone back to the growers, and we're telling the stories of how it's grown and to our guests, and so they understand where it actually comes out of the ground and how we prepare it. And it helps the guest understand. I mean, P.F. Chang's has, we start with produce and then add protein. So most of our dishes are basically produce items. So we rely heavily on the grower shipper community to help us bring things to the table, and then we explain it to our guests, hoping that they then go and look for it in the grocery stores and the retail outlets.
Would you, how would that work? Would you have like specifications? We need to create this dish, we have to be able to buy it for X price, or we need to have certain nutrients, flavor profiles? What would you be looking for?
A little bit of everything, I think. It starts with our chefs, and they go out and we try to keep them out of the grocery stores, but they will go in and find things and come back, and then I go to my distributors or who we get our produce from, and then they will reach out to the grower shippers.
Okay. We're here in New York. Mark, you're operation is here in New York. What makes this market a little different than, say, the national markets if we were in Omaha or Boise? What makes these customers different, and what dynamics in the market are different?
Well, we have most of our stores are in New York, in the city, so it's a lot of grab and go. The people shop a lot differently. We have people come in the stores every day and buy one banana, and they'll be back the next day. Where, you know, in the suburbs, people fill up a cart and you see them next week. And we do a lot more grab and go. A lot of the cut vegetables, cut fruit, because people don't have room in the refrigerators to buy all the ingredients, all the different vegetables, that they're not going to use everything. So we do containers of cut vegetables, and we do it all in store. We don't buy it.
That sounds like an almost European way of buying. Amy, before you started with HelloFresh, you were with Waitrose, a very experiential, upscale UK retailer, and before that, Tesco, the largest retailer. Do you think encouraging shopping patterns like that actually encourages the use of more fresh produce?
Yeah, although I think going forward we need to go beyond that. So if we look at the trends at the moment globally, moving from customization, especially at HelloFresh, we're providing customers a number of different meals to choose from a week, to personalization. And I think that is where I see the future moving. So we should know what our customers want before they know themselves.
Lauren, you know, is the whole idea of shopping going to change? Whichever channel you're using, Amy talks about customizing things because you have allergies or certain preferences. A lot of people identify shopping as a chore. Will I be able to use new technologies, you know, Amazon Echo and things like that, where I just can order my things and they'll just be delivered, and shopping will almost be a thing that it's not a task anymore, it's just a delivery service of life?
You know that actually that we don't know how our customer will like and how they will be, the shopping behavior will change maybe in the future. So what we know is that, you know, we hope that we can, you know, catch up with the others. And, you know, the younger generation, actually, or, you know, that I'm maybe the oldest one in my company. So we try to understand more about what our future customer will think alike. And not just, you know, the customer, the younger generation, even, you know, my parents, you know, they are customized, they're getting used to use the smartphones and to order online and to, you know, to get a China Uber. So, you know that we don't know how the customer will change, and we don't know what kind of the shopping will be like in the future. So what we want to do is that we you know, as a fruit company, we try to make our customer one image that we always like fresh. We always be innovative to make our customer feel like that we can provide them the most fresh things from the whole world.
Sharon, you know, I have 2 teenage boys, and what's interesting, I mean, I can't remember the last time they actually went into a supermarket to buy anything, but they're not that keen on restaurants either. They mostly like to whip out their phones and order anything they'd like at any moment delivered to them. And I was telling the group yesterday, my son found one guy who he loves because this app has no delivery charge, at least for now. So he says, Dad, what's great is I like the soup at this restaurant, and I like the salad at this, and the entree here, and the dessert here, and I could order all 4, and they'll bring them over to me. You know, how is the how is the consumer going to be getting food in the future? What's going to change from where we are?
You know, I think the consumer is going to be getting food in all different ways. The apps and the young consumers they're phenomenal and they love to customize things. But food is the kind of thing that connects people. And it doesn't matter where you're at or what's going on. Like you see the rise of food halls phenomena. It's just a big marketplace. It's like a modern food court, but it's not a food court. It's about socializing. And it's where you can go with 8 friends who want 12 different things, and you can make a day of it. You're having that experience. You can also pick up some things to take home if you want to prepare that experience. But that same person who loves that food experience, when they have time, they're rushed, they're in a hurry, they go to the app, they get their food. And I think it's like an individual consumer is so hard to stereotype, because they'll use an app, they'll go to a food hall, they'll go out with their friends to a party, they'll go to QSR, and they'll have amazing food where they go to school or where they work. Because, I mean, you can get amazing food on college campuses. I wish I could go back. School food service, when we do research with consumers and they look at those things, they're like, that looks really great, I bet it's in a restaurant. And it isn't. And I think the thing is, the consumer can have it any way they want, and it's about the type of experience they want and when they want that experience, and it's all available. You can have a restaurant in a supermarket.
You know, Tony from Peapod, I keep thinking about that. Sorry for the name.
I like that.
My son's name, one of them is Matthew, and he's been blessed or cursed with 3 other Matthews since he was in pre-K in his class, so he's Matthew P every day. But, you know, you see retailers all over the country scrambling to deal with this issue of online ordering and delivery, and they're signing up with Instacart and places like that. But, you know, we also see it must not be that easy, because Amazon Fresh spent 7-8 years trying to get it right in their prototype city. Then they rolled out, and it's not been very long, and they just pulled back from a whole bunch of cities. What are the challenges of this? Why doesn't everyone want everything online and have it delivered? Why is it so hard?
Well, you know, the funny thing is we've been at this business for a long time, and it is a very, very challenging business. And there's a lot of companies that are, you know, seeing a lot of success. Instacarts of the world, Shipt, you know, and everybody's really learning. But, you know, the one thing we have, think about it, we started in 1989. People are always amazed when I say that fact. That was 5 years before the internet. That was 6 years before Amazon. So we learned a whole lot. And what we really feel at Peapod is that we have a sustainable and scalable model. So a lot of companies really don't have scale yet. When they start reaching scale, and even some of the large retailers that are doing click and collect, some of them have even admitted to the fact that once it reaches really high volumes, that they're struggling a little bit. It is not an easy business. And sometimes we think of ourselves as a food company that uses technology to deliver food, and sometimes we think of ourselves as a technology company that delivers food. So it's really, the key is logistics. How do you move goods and products from point A to point B, but more importantly, where everybody in this room is involved, how do you move those products that have temperature controls with them? And that's where the whole equation becomes very, very difficult, and it's taken us 27 years to figure it out.
You know, we had at our program here at the event, we had at the program we do in conjunction with Cornell, which is our foundational excellence program. So they have a lot of younger people who are gaining a strong foundation in the industry and sort of jump-starting their careers by coming to this program we offer. It's an incredible thing. And we had a whole group there from Jet.com, which is the acquisition Walmart made to ramp up their online efforts. And it's interesting because here in the Northeast, and only in the Northeast, they right now are selling fresh produce. They don't do it in the rest of the country. And they've created special packaging that simultaneously is divided up. They can have frozen, they can have refrigerated, and they can have ambient things in the same box that is sent FedEx. So the technology and the way things are evolving, things that might not have been thought really possible, seem in fact to become possible today. You know, when we think about university food service, Rafi, Up till 10 years ago or so, it really didn't have a reputation for what Sharon was talking about, high quality food. We had to feed these people and feed them cheap. But it seems like that standard has changed, and the whole technology around it has sort of evolved. What is the demand today? Is it for a different level than it was when you started in your career?
Well, yes, it has. What a major transformation in the last 10, 15 years has happened in the campus dining overall. I think campus dining now has become a very high regarded amenity to the university, where the primarily academic was the focus of the university. Now, a lot of universities are at the same level or very similar level when it comes up to academic, and they want to differentiate themselves with amenities that they actually provide for their students. And for most of us now, we're concentrated in creating memorable experiences for students. Because it's not anymore about quality food and quality service, it's about quality experience. And when Tony was saying that interaction with the customer is very important in their chain of supermarkets, in their places, because that creates relationship, long-lasting relationship. And so when alums, they go out 10 years, 15 years from now, they come back to these places, they remember experiences strongly more than anything else. And we have something to do with it. Campus dining has something to do with it. Now, if I may, I want to go back to the earlier question that you had for Robin. Produce industry for many years traditionally focused on retail, because retail is bread and butter of you guys. and even though food service accounts for 49%, and now according to you even past the 49%, is now at 50.5%, we really haven't got that kind of attention from produce industry. And when the focus is on the retail, primarily size, shape, color, shelf life, and distribution. And when it comes up to the food service, particularly in campus dining, we're in the business of seducing our customers. We're in the business of creating, so it's becoming about taste, it's about aroma, it's about texture, and something that we can actually afford buying. Because you can buy those three things, expensive. You lose affordability when it comes up about taste, flavor, aroma, and texture. So that's where we need help from the produce industry. A little bit more focus on the food service, particularly on large-scale institutional food service, because there's a major transformation is happening there, and you should be paying attention to it.
Well, Tony from McCaffrey's, don't you try and seduce your customers too?
He hit it right out of the park. It's absolutely true. We do try to seduce our customers. And, here's the magic behind, the retail and what we do, is that buying food is a very emotional thing for some people. It's a feel good. And that's what we try to create within our stores. I have a saying I always talk to my produce managers about: you got to make your department pop. It has to pop. When people come in, they have to feel that excitement. They have to see that unusual item. They have to be able to get excited about shopping your departments. And that's the secret about seducing your customer. When they walk in, they have to feel like, oh my gosh, I want to buy everything. And that's the touch, the feel, the interaction that we need to provide in order to keep people coming into the supermarket and let them have that experience.
John, in some parts of the country, you go to certain places where they have these enormous stores, and they literally can be sort of mini food halls and have 7 food service operations and things like that. A lot of New York retail is sort of space constrained. How can you still have that appeal, that seduction that Tony's talking about when you're working under such tight quarters?
It is a big challenge. we can't expand outward and have these mass displays, but you got to pick and choose your spots wherever you can show the consumer what you have to offer. That's why earlier today with the innovation awards that you gave out, it's so important because these items, you know, they keep coming in and you're always looking for that next item, something that's going to bring the customer in. What's the next hot item? Who would have thought that vegetable noodles would have been a big item or riced cauliflower? So the challenge is working these items in and something's got to go. So you're always looking at your categories, always trying to see something's coming in, how's it selling, something has to leave. You can't have everything. Your space is limited. So that's a big challenge for us.
Mark, you also operate under limited real estate. What kind of support, if any, are you able to give an item, maybe one of the new innovative items that we gave the awards to this morning, that maybe isn't an instantaneous hit with consumers because they've got to get used to it or learn how to use it and things like this. Can you sustain support for those items for a while they build, or is that too tough? Is the space too valuable?
It's tough. We have to turn the items because the space is limited. So if something, we give it a chance, but if something doesn't turn, we have to put something else there. Because like what Jon said, if you put something in, you have to take something out. And normally whatever we have there is selling. So if we put something there that's not selling, plus we're losing the sales on what was selling. But we try and do ads and promote the items as much as we can.
What can producers do? Is there any kind of support that they can give that might help these items take off?
A lot of it is advertising. Mm-hmm. Because if somebody comes in a store with a thought in their head of buying an item like that, it's easier. But if you just put it on the shelf sometimes, nobody knows.
Do you find consumers come in sometimes, maybe they saw something on the Food Network or something maybe non-advertising related, but other...
Absolutely. Any way they can get the information to a consumer so they have the idea in their head before they come into the stores to buy it, it's going to help. Mm-hmm. Because just putting it on the shelf, it's mixed in with, hundreds of other items.
Josh, your stores, they have a very diverse clientele, a lot of ethnic groups that buy in these stores. How do you manage to have a broad enough offering to appeal to all the different ethnic groups and demographics of a diverse place like New York?
Our supply chain is very immense, so we have a lot of vendors that sort of bring a lot of things to the table. So we'll deal with like Percacci and Four Seasons and Our Best and Bizzuto's that sort of brings something to the table. On top of that, these are independent, so they have the flexibility to go into Hunts Point and deal with a lot of this different vendors that sell a lot of specialties and things like that. So it's really, the independents basically have that sort of challenge to sort of bring all that product into their stores, but at least for our stores, we give them that flexibility, we give them that opportunity, and we partner with those other companies out there that bring something to the table, to the stores.
Robin, in your environments, what do you do that will seduce the customers into your restaurants and make them feel that this is an experience that's worth paying for as opposed to just eating at home or in someplace else?
We've kind of got away from that experience, and we saw that in our sales. So what we're trying to engage our team members that get to the table first and try to explain what our meals are about. We're trying to try this or have you tried this, and engage with them a little bit more, which then it goes back to the back of the house, to the restaurant or to the chefs to make sure that they're engaging with their team members to understand what it is, and then we have them go out into the restaurants and chat with the chefs will go out and chat with our guests to make sure they understand what's in the different produce items or proteins on our dishes. sauces, basically, because there's a lot of Asian sauces that some people don't understand or know what those taste like. So they'll ask them, do you enjoy spicy or mild? And then kind of steer them in those directions.
Jon, we talk about innovation, we often talk about the products, and we're looking, though, for breakthroughs that will make it easier for the industry to serve consumers, whether it's through restaurants or through supermarkets or online services. What kind of things can you see coming up in the logistics end of things? I mean, are we going to not have to worry because all our trucks will be autonomous and we'll be driving 24 hours, we'll speed up all our deliveries from California? What's going to happen next?
It would be wonderful if we could have autonomous trucking. I don't know how far in the future that's going to be, but certainly, there are limitations to the current system, and it's going to get more stringent with the requirements on the drivers now. So if we're increasing the time to come across the country, it's impacting freshness, which is going to, increase shrink for both ourselves and retailers. So we're going to need to, like I said before, think differently about how we load and how we minimize the transit time for product to get across the country to make, to give us the most amount of time to sell the freshest product.
Yeah, okay. One of the purposes of this panel is to try and get us all thinking about some new things, some new ways of doing things, to open our minds, because as we head down to a trade show, we have 400 people with new things to show you that are going to want you to be involved. Maybe I could ask Ed to kind of paint us a picture of what new things, what new ways that maybe we didn't think about a few years ago may define the future of retailing, and thus of the need for the supply chain to be responsive in the next few years. I don't know that anyone was sitting here last year expecting that, say, Amazon would buy Whole Foods. What's the next unexpected thing that's going to happen, Ed?
Well, I, for one, certainly didn't see the Whole Foods Amazon deal coming either. That's another crystal ball question, Jim. I suspect it's an elaboration of what I started to say earlier, and that is, I think as Amazon and other e-commerce companies, and Peapod would certainly be one of the leaders there, continues to make progress, I think we'll see a more efficient supply chain, and in some cases delivered directly to the home, whether Amazon and others do it with drones or autonomous technologies that circle the neighborhoods that's being discussed. I'm not sure, but I think it'll be something for sure will be in that direction. I think as that puts cost pressures on traditional retail, they'll have to take some steps to further to continue to contain their costs on the one hand, in order to provide some funds to further invest into growing their companies. That means differentiation. I don't think, as I started to mention earlier, that retailers are going to continue to be able to grow their SKUs. In the 1960s, we had 65 items in the produce department. Now, an average conventional retailer has 400 or 500, and some of the big ones have 1,000 SKUs in their warehouse. C&S probably has twice that number, I don't know.
We can have 1,000 to 1,500 SKUs.
Right, and I don't think that's going to be able to continue. Do retailers really need 45 SKUs of tomatoes to make a statement that they have a variety of tomatoes? I don't think so. I think they're going to come to the realization that 25 tomatoes is still a lot of tomatoes, and that's going to start to contain costs. So I think on the one hand, they're going to have to continue to be mindful of the price pressures that come, A, from Amazon, B, from the discounters, and at the other hand, they're going to have to continue to offer a differentiated, service-oriented experience that will, that Tony was talking about earlier, that will engage the customers that come in that need the information.
All right. Nobody on this panel had to be here today. They're kind enough to share with the whole industry their very substantial insight and experience, and I hope you'll join me in giving a big hand to thank them for being here with us today.